Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning, khushamdi, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen.
Pagherangele, ni hao, chureshumme, washwale, ohio gonzaimes, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, previous, kaifahal, hale shamachatore, ahlan wasalan, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, ishpata, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside the very amazing, the very fantastic Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan. Hi Shiza, how are you today?
Thank you for asking. I'm doing absolutely great. What about you?
Well, I feel great too as well. I think I've really slept enough, and whenever you sleep enough, I think that's a better or a great start to your day as well. Because
Absolutely.
initially, what happens is that you really do not want to get out of your quilt. Well, that's very obvious since it's winters, ladies and gentlemen. But somehow, if you do, and after shower, I think you're good to go. You're great,
Right.
yes. And I
So,
think I have my morning jams as well. So whenever I sit in my car, I put on my favorite tunes, sing along, and
which one
that's
did you
it.
listen to today?
So today it was in somewhere, I think the accent was Punjabi. Tere ishq mein kurban ho jaun.
Okay.
It's not something of that sort. And you
Okay.
you 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 have a glance at nature, and Islamabad is so beautiful. So you're in love with everything. I think
Right.
I'm in love with everything these days.
Wow, that's a brilliant, brilliant feeling, right?
Yes, it is.
And since you sort of mentioned some great ways to start today, of
Yes.
course, showering, your favorite jam and whatnot. But another good way to, carry out throughout the day is
Yes.
surround yourself with positive people, positive
Yes.
thoughts. Be kind to others and do unto others as you expect them to do unto you. So that is going to be a great motto, or let's say a
Exactly.
mantra for your day, right?
Exactly, and I agree to that, but I partially disagree to that too as well.
Why?
And it is why, because
Disagreements early in the morning, I can't take.
no, it's not that one of those disagreements,
Okay,
but
okay, go
what I
ahead.
believe in is that when you love somebody and when you want to share empathy, or probably you want to be around someone, please make sure that you do that without expecting anything.
Right, that's
I
true.
think that if you learn to do that, you're so full of content, and you're so full of humility, or probably modest. You become a modest human being,
Well,
because
that is
once you stop expecting, that's the time when you start giving.
That's true, and that is one of the highest qualities of being a human being, being selfless, right?
Yes.
But, ladies and gentlemen, other than that, this is your phrase, I know.
Yeah.
I think it's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the country. So,
Ooh,
here
it's
we
getting
go
cold.
with these visuals on your screen.
Let's do that. So talking about weather, ladies and gentlemen, today it was very cold and dry early over here in Islamabad, but then at the same time, the Met Office has predicted more scattered rain and snowfall over the hills in upper parts of the country, and thank God it's just in the hills, because we're doing this amazing festival over the weekend.
Absolutely, and also expected in Malakand, Hazara divisions, Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, and rain also expected at isolated places in Mardan, Kohat, Peshawar, Lahore, Gujranwala, Rawalpindi divisions, and Islamabad.
Okay, well, but there's more snowfall over hills is also expected, ladies and gentlemen, and foggy conditions are expected in plain areas of Punjab during morning hours. So please make sure that you do not go on a voyage in the morning.
Or late at night.
Or late at night, I think is cool, because the Met Office said it's only going to be foggy in the morning.
Well, I think better safe than
Yeah, better safe
sorry.
than sorry, yes.
But ladies and gentlemen, so we started this segment where we wish birthdays. But today, just to save on time, we're not going to do that. But
Yeah.
for everyone who share your birthdays and special days with us, we're so happy for you sharing with us. And also a
Exactly.
very happy birthday to everyone celebrating happy wedding anniversaries, all sorts of anniversaries and
Yeah,
whatnot.
all sorts
I
of
really,
anniversaries, but not
I
death anniversaries, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, we're not wishing them out too as well.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it was on a lighter note.
I
But now,
really hope all of you have
okay.
a brilliant day ahead of
Okay,
you.
so Shiza, now I've got a very important question,
Okay.
because we're actually going to dive into what we wanted to talk about.
Okay.
It is a very important day today, since it's 24th of January, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think that if you would have never been to a school, you would have been where you are right now?
Absolutely not. I mean, how would I know how to speak or how to even create a sentence, right? Or to interpret people? I don't
Exactly.
think, absolutely no.
Okay, okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is one thing which we're talking about. Let's do it this way as well, and that is education. It is our fundamental right.
Yeah.
This is what our constitution says as well. But then, other than that, on the 3rd December 2018, United Nations actually adopted on a resolution where they said that 24th of January is actually going to be
The World Education Day, and
International
starting from
Education Day, yes.
2019, yes.
Exactly. So this is for the very first time that all the UN member states are actually going to observe this day as well. But what the message is actually engraved in such a way as well, that I think that it's going to be very futuristic for all those generations to pick up on this, because we're
Right.
talking about equitable and inclusive education. Now, whenever we talk about inclusivity, I think that there are a lot of people who have question marks, because for me, inclusivity would be, you know, men, women, transgenders, you know,
Right.
each and every member of the society needs to study together so that
Agreed.
they can be at par.
Totally agreed. And you know, I'm so sorry. Since we're sort of talking about the Education Day,
Yes.
this was the first time we're celebrating because we finally realized that this has to be one of the SDGs that we have to achieve for Vision 2030, right?
Exactly.
And it is also imperative to all the other SDGs, and better late than never, I guess. But in
Exactly.
terms of Pakistan especially, it is very important because Pakistan, unfortunately, happens to be the second country in terms of out-of-school children in the world. And 26 countries who are poorer than Pakistan have more children going to school than Pakistan does. So these stats are staggering and they're so shocking, and this is why we're here to talk about this, to highlight this with some very apt guests over here.
Exactly, ladies and gentlemen. Before we, you know, introduce them to you as well, you know, globally the figures say that it's more than 260 million children who are actually out of schools too as well. And then coming down to Pakistan, where, you know, population is even probably an issue these days as well, and people are actually taking initiatives to make people aware of the fact that you're not supposed to have so many babies anyways. You know, it's not better for the economy of the country
Right,
itself.
absolutely, absolutely.
So imagine if we already have so many children out of school, so for near children to come in, do you think that we'll be facilitating them with quality education? This is one thing which we need to ask.
Right.
And then in life, is it education or knowledge which you require to be who you are or to reach to your destiny? Because I believe that education, I do not know, I'm not sure about it. We're definitely going to ask our guests about it as well. But I believe that because over here in Pakistan, we have this concept whether, you know, if you're going to be educated, only then you'll be able to earn and run a house or probably get married. This is how we think.
Right.
But one way or the other, I think risk ke मामलात Allah के साथ बेहतर हैं. So education is for you and for your own self and for the humanity around you. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, on my right hand side, I've been joined by somebody who's an enthusiast and he works for education as well. You know, he's got all the figures on his tips. So he's none other than Mr. Zagam Hidayatullah, who is the Director Marketing Knowledge Platform. Hi, hello, assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Good, doing well. Thank you so much for having me on such an auspicious day.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Our
very much for
pleasure,
joining us.
absolutely.
Alongside Mr. Zagam, ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by Ms. Samia Liaquat Khan, who's the Head Quality Assurance PPAF. Hello, assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, representing the northern areas of Pakistan from Gilgit-Baltistan, making his way to the studios of PTV World. He's none other than Abdul Jahan Karbash. He's the CEO, MED. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome.
Thank you very much for joining us. But let's get the conversation started. First things first, how would you highlight the significance of this day, which came into observance for the very first time, and that is today?
I think it's been long overdue. I think the conversation is now slowly changing from not just having education as a right for any child, but also a quality education so that a child benefits from putting in 10 to 12 years in schooling, and he begins to reap benefits out of that once he graduates and is real world ready and able to get the jobs that he needs to create and add value in tomorrow's economy.
Okay,
great.
okay, that makes sense. But you know, before we actually move on to the real discussion, I think we have to probably set aside the real parameters of literacy in education. Everyone has different understandings of them. I do have different understandings. Google has a different, you know, sort of understanding for people who Google. But starting with you, Ms. Sam, for your understanding of education literacy.
Well, literacy is the ability to read a simple sentence and to be able to do some maths, to be able to add and subtract for a little bit. It provides you the basis, in a sense. Yes, to read a street sign, to be able to understand, okay, the shop, the name of the shop, things like that. This is why literacy is required. Education goes beyond literacy. It is about creating a learning environment to understand the world around you, to understand how you can contribute to the world, and what you can gain, and as well as what I think the world can gain from you.
Exactly.
And for this, I think education becomes really the most powerful tool for any human being in their life.
It really does. But moving on to Sir over here. So, Sir, I think that the literacy rates over there in Gilgit-Baltistan are already very high. And
in Gilgit-Baltistan, it is higher, and in most part of the Gilgit-Baltistan, particularly where Khan Development Network has established their schools in Hunza and Ghazar.
Yeah.
In that area, the education literacy rate is very high.
Yeah.
But what I will come back to your that idea of the knowledge and education.
Yeah.
Knowledge is a very surface level of part of education. Education is more than knowledge. In education, you have values, you have skills, you have attitude, you have some actions. When all these are there, then you can say it's education.
Okay.
But if you only piece together some of the information,
Yeah.
then that is knowledge. So in our school, unfortunately, we have people are mostly focusing providing some knowledge, not focusing skills, not focusing attitude side of the education, and not particularly the values.
So what is
are
the
there.
attitude side of the education?
Yeah, particularly, when an educated person is in the society, he has some knowledge, but if he is not able to, apply that knowledge, apply that knowledge for the improvement of their society, that is a kind of attitude.
Okay.
And how you behave, and the way you are behaving with the people, everything in your society.
So then let's start from Pakistan, because we definitely are way behind alongside the international community when we talk about education. So what are the figures, first of all, for out-of-school children? What are the problems? What are the stigmas? What are the taboos?
Sure.
Let's talk about them. Let's get them out, and let's make people aware of the
Sure.
fact.
So if we were to do sort of a back of the envelope calculation, if we have 20 children in Pakistan, let's assume half or roughly 40% are out of school. So 10 children don't even attend school. Out of the 10 that do go to school, 7 of them drop out before graduating.
Okay.
So you lose them along the way, and you lose them predominantly because, and there have been research and many surveys done on this, is that the parents and the children both say that that the child loses interest in schooling. So he drops out mentally before he drops out physically.
Yeah.
The 3 children that do graduate from school, only one of those 3 is considered real world ready.
Right.
So the impact that our education system is having is creating, is only having impact on 5% of the children that are of school-going age.
Okay.
And that too is top-heavy with the elite private schools and those that come from privileged backgrounds rather than an even playing field.
Okay, that makes sense. But since we are typically talking about Pakistan, ignoring the percentage of the students that go to private schools, let's talk about government schools right now.
Right.
You mentioned that they lose interest.
Yeah.
How do you expect a child who needs attention, who needs some sort of, an engagement to carry on? How do you expect him to have, that interest sort of build up when in his schools, 40% of schools, they do not even have desks? And these are the stats on the government's official website. 59% do not have electricity, and 35.4% do not even have toilets to go to. I mean, just let's talk about the basic things that
Facilities.
everyone needs as a child, as a student as well.
Imagine
So-
if I'm in the class and I need to go to the washroom. I mean, imagine I cannot concentrate on whatever mathematics
No, that's
solution is
true,
right in
that's
front of
true.
me.
Right.
For girls, this is one of the biggest
Yeah.
issues,
Absolutely.
right? That if there is not separate washrooms for boys and girls in a school, most girls will not go to school.
Right,
Their families will not allow them, and they can't. It's just the basic requirements. And this is where, when we talk about equity and inclusion, obviously access to schools, access to education requires the physical access. So
Right.
the ability to have a school close enough to you that if you need to walk, I mean, it's, they say a 2-kilometer distance is sort of the maximum that there should be. That when you get to the school, that you have a desk and chair to sit on,
Right.
that you have toilets, that you have a little water facility,
Clean
so that
drinking
if you are
facility,
Definitely.
thirsty, you can have water. And it doesn't seem that we are even able to provide these very basics. Forget about when we talk about quality education
Right.
and what is happening within the classroom.
Right.
What is the interaction between
the
teacher and
curriculum.
student? Where does corporal punishment come into all of this? This is another reason why a lot of children drop out of school, right? Is this kind of, is the beating aspect of it. So we have a number of issues that we need to address, and I think as a nation we need to address these, and we need to be very firm as to what is it that we want from our schools.
So let's talk about, we'll definitely come on to you, we'll move on to you as well, but I want to identify the role of PPAF in terms, because, earlier when we were conversing, you said that, you take on to the public schools and then you give them those facilities and then to make sure and you ensure that, everything's working in a process. So the role of PPAF.
So we are an apex organization, and we work with civil society to undertake a number of the development outcomes and goals that even the SDGs related to the SDGs, one of which is education. Since 2006, we have been working on education. And the way we work, so Abdul Jahan is one of our partner organizations. They're working with us in Gizar. And
I will explain
is that we either adopt the government schools in certain areas. So we work in rural, marginalized areas where communities are not getting proper access to education, right? Okay. So where we look and see that there are government schools, but they're not very functional, we agree with the government, we sign an MOU, and we adopt those schools through our partner organizations. We provide the necessary infrastructure development as required, as well as the teachers. And then we also look at quality education, so doing the teacher training, ensuring enrollment is rising within that school, ensuring dropout rates are not falling, and that the children get a quality education. Unfortunately, what we've realized over time, we also have a system where we work with the community and the organization, the civil society organization, to set up community schools, which are actually run and managed by the community. The problem when we adopt government schools is that sooner or later we believe that we need to hand them back over to government. Unfortunately, we have seen historically the experience has been that after 3 years or 5 years of having this kind of a setup, we say, okay, now we should hand it back over to the government, because the government still has investment in those schools. It's not that they don't, and they are paying mainly the teachers' salaries, etc. What we find is that the level again goes back down. And so for us, one of the strategies that we are now adopting is we realize that there are certain areas in Pakistan where maybe the kind of quality schooling that is required is not going to be, the government is not so far been able to provide. We don't know if maybe they are going to be, it will happen. So we have a long-term engagement now in those schools that we have been supporting for the last 5 years or 10 years. We want to continue over the next 10 to 15 years, because if we can develop cohorts of students who have graduated through primary, so they've done the full cycle of primary, they've gone into secondary, then we believe that those students can come back into their communities and really become the agents of change for their communities.
That's great, and I'll come back to you where I actually want to ask ma'am over here that whether, if these ideas are not sustainable enough, that the thing actually comes back to being original or probably being worse than it was before. What's the point of this initiative? But before we do that, I think I'm going to move on to Mr. Abdul Jahan over here. He wanted to add on, and then I'm going to ask you about the role of MIED as well.
Yeah, particularly. Yeah, I will just add on that. Particularly, we are working with PPAF as implementing partners. We have this technical expertise, and we know what are some of the issues inside the school.
Let us know.
Particularly, the schools are existing every villages, but these schools are not attracting children. Why? Because the atmosphere is not friendly for the children. The teachers are not, teaching in the way the children are not able to, the learning outcomes of the children are attainable, achievable. So there are many problems. To address these problems, we through PPAF, we are implementing a school improvement model. And then approach is, this is engaging all stakeholders, the teachers, the school heads, the community, and the children. As you are mentioning the sustainability. When you are engaging all these stakeholders, and particularly the community, they are participating in school improvement activities, then all these activities are owned by the community. And
well, this is debatable, but this is what I'm saying, because ma'am over here very correctly mentioned that, once we take a step back, things come back to where they were already. So I think that we probably, even when we talk about technical expertise, I'm sorry, but even if we talk about technical expertise, I think that we need to come up with solutions which are sustainable for the next 50 years at least, or probably another century. This is how the world's moving. So, I don't know where we're having a transfusion of education and technology, and I think that it's about time that we do that.
I will explain that to you. You have schools there, you have teachers, You have children and you have parents. Why is sustainability issue? The sustainability issue is all these stakeholders are not taking ownership.
Okay,
Are
so
making-
let's
yeah.
ask ma'am then. So ma'am Samia,
So, no,
stakeholders
I-
first of all. For
Absolutely.
PPAF.
I agree with him. You see, for me, I think the issue is that government is responsible for educating its population. We as private sector or civil society or, you know, even government extensions cannot take over the role that government has. But government needs to be made responsive, right? And how do they be made responsive is through the buy-in of the community, of the students, of the teachers, because each one of us are part of the state, you know, so even the teachers are part of the system of government. If they know that they have a community to answer to and they have students to answer to, they will become much better in terms of attendance and
they'll be
you know,
accountable.
so they will be accountable. So I think it's developing this system of accountability. I do think that it still needs to be strengthened within government's own system.
Yes,
but one of the
absolutely.
models that that they
that
have
is
done
one
is actually
Once-
bring accountability
Once
to the
there was a
community.
question
Yeah.
to us, you know, we were talking about monitoring system, how we can improve the monitoring system of schools. Where we mentioned that we have prepared our children to monitor school activities. The people ask, how you can say that children can monitor schools? Yes, children can monitor in schools. Parents can monitor their school activities, because when teachers will not come, the children will go to the house of the teacher. What is the problem with the teacher? Why our teacher is not in the school today? So there is a kind of, you know, building a relationship, a friendly relationship between teachers and students
Creating
and among
responsibility.
all stakeholders. When all stakeholders are taking school first and their interest is children learning, then they are taking the ownership.
But I'm sorry, I was always a different type of a guy, you know, who actually went into the school, or probably, you know, there was no teacher. Okay, I'm going back home. I'm not going anywhere else.
No, but you know, that was only like, of course. But Ms. Samia, you mentioned that it has to be the government's responsibility to do most of this, not all of this, I'm saying. I'm going to come back to that, but before Mr. Sekam, I want you to sort of explain to us the role of the knowledge platform and where are you in terms of achieving your goals and objectives?
Absolutely. Just to go back to the point that Samia addressed, that it's the government's responsibility. I do believe that by and large, the government should be responsible for living up to its constitutional pledge to us Pakistanis. But what we do notice is that while there has been systemic government failure, the private sector has stepped up to fill that void. So, you know, government sector growth is only 0.3% in education. The private sector in education is growing by over 5% year on year. It is one of the most lucrative industries to be in right now in terms of when you look at the growth statistics, when you look at our population growth levels. But how is it benefiting us as Pakistanis? Is it just benefiting, you know, a small collective few people, or is this actually creating better learning outcomes and adding value to what Pakistan needs in its labor force tomorrow? So where, you know, knowledge platform steps in is you know, I'm sure when we all look back and we look at what is the one thing that shaped our school experience, it is and always will be the teacher. So whether we love or hate a subject or love or hate a grade, it really depends on the teacher who is, you know, who is teaching the students, right? So you can't take the teacher away from the education process. What Knowledge Platform aims to do is to scaffold the teacher's ability to be her best or his best self in the classroom. We provide blended learning solutions to low-cost private and public schools in Pakistan. In the last year, we deployed our solution in over 250 schools in the country. We're working with about 80 public schools. So much like PPAF has adopted public schools, we, through a partnership with Jazz, have launched our blended learning solution in 75 all-girl public schools in Islamabad. And with regards to our private schools, we're in almost 200 private schools now in 20 cities across the country. What we do is we take any classroom, and with one laptop and one projector screen, we transform that into a smart classroom. So what our aim is to provide children quality education in a communications medium that they prefer. So
that they're interested in.
So more and more, so children are spending increasingly more time on the internet, on social media sites, on YouTube, we want to use those mediums to provide quality education to these children. And that is where Knowledge Platform comes in.
Okay.
And, so this actually sort of led me to a question that I'm not sure if I should be asking or not, but I need to from you guys, of course. You mentioned that you need to sort of, incorporate the internet with the education system because, of course, it is the need of the hour.
Well,
so when
is
we're looking
it?
at it is.
Okay.
So that's my perception of it. So when we're looking
was
at
on my face. Yes.
digitalization and everything, I'm not questioning it is absolutely a great move, providing laptops to the deserving students and whatnot. Is it enough only for the university students or not?
No, and we're
Should
not
we
saying
not
that.
be starting with primary or elementary level and not only laptops?
No, and we're not.
Tablets for
We're
kids,
not
yeah.
saying that technology is the solution, right? First, we have
But
to
it amps
identify.
up.
First, what we have to identify is how we want to improve our education system,
Right.
and then can technology help in that?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So if technology can play a positive role in improving student learning outcomes, in improving engagement in the classroom, in increasing retention rates and reducing dropout rates, then only is it considered a viable solution.
Right.
So that is what we're trying to address. We do see the student engagement goes up in classrooms where blended learning solution is deployed. We have noticed that children from sitting back in the classroom quite disconnected, move forward and take part in these activities and games when the teacher launches them on the screen. And what we have noticed is because the teacher gets rapid feedback, so she knows how, at the end of every class, she's able to take an assessment that children do with these small clickers that are like,
Right.
if you've seen Kaun Banega Crorepati mein,
Right,
in
right.
the audience,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get these clickers.
Yeah.
So we get those out in the classroom.
Oh,
So at
perfect.
the end of every class, the teacher can tell how well the student has understood the topic. If they have not understood, which children or individuals in the class have not understood, need remedial learning. What happens is in a conventional classroom, the topics are taught in a straight line, in a linear line. If you don't understand, the teacher doesn't particularly go back. A test is taken. The test is then graded. And then feedback comes to the child about a month later.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Which by that time, the child has probably forgotten what he has learned in the class, right?
True. Absolutely.
Yeah. I do not remember a word I learned in school.
So I think by now, we're coming back to the government side. So we know there are a lot of issues, and that is not the reason we've called you. We've called you here because you guys are the practitioners of the industry, and you guys are the change makers, of course, and we're proud of that. So to begin with, in terms, in case of emergency education plan, the government has sort of launched on their website 5 points that they would adopt in case of emergency. I don't know when that is going to come. But I'm going to talk about two of them. One of them was the uniform education system, and the other was, in case of need, increasing the expenses from 2.1% of the GDP to 5% of the GDP. Are we doing any of that? Are we supposed to do any of that?
Are we keeping
all
a check
of you
on
one
that?
by one?
Well, we need to keep a check on that. I mean, the thing is that with government now, right, and after the 18th Amendment, schooling has gone down, the subject has gone to the provincial level. So in
Right,
terms of
right.
curriculum design and all of that, it is now not for the
the
center,
provinces,
it is for the provinces. There are pros and cons on this situation, as we know, because if each province has its own curriculum, then where is the synthesis
Right.
as a nation? Where do we synthesize
Or
this
even globally.
curriculum? Or even globally. So I think we need to have there has to be a national debate where every province, every region has its say of what are the basic fundamentals of
Or their
education that are
requirements, yes.
required.
Agreed.
So then a curriculum can be developed or refined on the basis of that. And again, the curriculum now, we have to move into the 21st century, right?
Absolutely.
So
About time.
ICT, technology is one of the ways of doing it, and it is a tool, but it is also for how many? There are over 120 million mobile phone users in this
Probably,
country,
yeah.
Okay,
right? So
okay.
everyone can figure out how to send messages,
Right.
whether you're literate or not, or whatever, right? So there is some technology that you could potentially utilize to support your educational attainment or education
It's just
system.
that it gets annoying when somebody texts you in Urdu and it's written in English. You're like, oh,
It's
what have you written?
not really. It's
No.
quite fascinating.
Even
right?
I write
that
in Urdu. It's
that
very
that
interesting.
they're texting,
Yeah.
they're talking in Urdu,
Yeah.
but they're using
So,
the English.
probably my Urdu
language.
spellings will be different from somebody else, but that's not what we're talking
But
about.
sir, you need
Sir.
to add something.
Particularly this point is very important, curriculum enrichment, when whatever it is a provincial subject now, the education, but the curriculum document is centrally developed. your curriculum objectives for all the subjects and for all the provinces these are mentioned in your curriculum document.
Okay.
But the problem here is the curriculum document and the curriculum action in your classrooms and schools.
Right.
When your teachers, your education officials, all these people are not aware of the objectives of curriculum, if they are unable to relate these curriculum objectives with the materials available in the textbooks,
Right.
you know, each province has its own textbook boards.
Okay, yeah.
But how these materials, particularly,
Wow.
the important point here is how this material is helping you to achieve these curriculum objectives.
Yeah.
And how your teachers are, you know, they have that skills and the knowledge that they can help and facilitate their children to achieve that curriculum objectives, particularly students' learning outcomes. SLOs-based teaching, we mostly say it, you know. When teachers are clear that they are coming to the classroom with a clear lesson plan, and their lesson plan, the curriculum objectives are clearly mentioned that
Right.
these materials, and what we do is we only use textbook as a tool. It is not the textbook that will be helpful to achieve all these curriculum objectives.
Yeah.
Here comes the curriculum enrichment process. Enrichment process, your teachers have to be aware about teaching methodologies.
Right, definitely.
If they are about teaching methodologies, then they will engage their children in a learning process.
Definitely.
The important point is engaging children in learning process. Our teachers is mostly focusing on teaching.
Teaching,
They
right.
are not
No
focusing
outcomes.
children's learning.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
the role of teacher in the classroom is they have to, they must provide opportunities for children to learn.
To excel.
They will bring something. They will engage them in a project activity. They will bring some kind guest speakers. They will bring some other activities. Only textbook is not enough
So
to
I
achieve
want to
curriculum
I want to
objectives.
add on to this as well. So earlier when I was preparing for the show, so I came across this letter which was written by a principal to the parents, all the parents of all those children who were attending school.
Yeah.
And it was about to be their final examination, and the letter actually got posted like 10 minutes earlier to all of those parents.
Okay.
And the letter said, in which the principal actually writes, and I think that we need to probably think about this kind of methodology for educating our children, because he said that, you know, unfortunately, if your kid is unable to score well in mathematics,
Yeah.
I still know that he'll be a better architect, or I'll still know that he'll be a better musician, or I'll still know that if he failed this exam, he'll be better at this thing. And even now, globally, if we see there's this trend of being specialized in one field. So why do we even have to learn 10, 20, 15, 100 subjects when we're actually going to end up on a couch where I'll be talking to people?
True.
You know, I'll probably be a public speaker, or probably I'll attend a class. So when are we going to specialize
And for
in
that-
within educational fields, and that too within the schools as well?
Very true. You know, I will give you an example. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Education Sector Program, CASP, through DFID funded projects, you know.
Yes.
In that, what they have done is, the Directorate of Curriculum and Teacher Education, Abbottabad, DCT, they have with some of the technical experts like MIED,
Yeah.
we have provided them that technical expertise to, you know, relate these, come up with teacher guides.
Yeah.
And in that teacher guides, you have to relate curriculum objectives with students' learning outcomes.
Yeah.
When student learning outcome based teachers' guides are available, then actual learning is taking place in the classroom.
Okay.
And then the children will go ahead, what you are mentioning.
Exactly.
Well, specialization is, you know, at some point you have to have a kind of a broad base of education,
So
right?
you can
need
at
your
least comprehend,
language,
you know.
your mathematics, your sciences. You need to have that comprehension of, again, the world around you,
And
what
also
it
to be
is.
able to explore
but,
what you
and
want,
to
right?
explore, because you don't know at 10 years old whether you want to
Definitely.
do medicine, or you want to do engineering, or you want to do
I
law,
didn't-
or you
I
want to
didn't
be
even know at
an
21 to be
artist, or
honest.
Yeah.
So you know, it gives you that broad base. But one of the things I want to bring in is about equity and inclusion, right? So having a curriculum that has definitely the ability to engage a student and for them to question,
Yeah.
right? Because our teachers don't allow students to question, and we, even in the private schools, a lot of the times, I grew up over here, and even in private schools, you're not really allowed to question, you know, and I think that that is a big disservice
Exactly.
to every individual, because it stops your ability to think
Right.
and to think outside of the box. And when we talk about, well, you look around the world and you see all of these great inventors, and whether it's digital, whether it's anything that you're looking at, now you need to be able to think outside the box. And if you're stifling that kind of questioning, it's a big disservice. So I think we have to look within our schools to actually allow students to question and give them, you're right, maybe they don't need the 10 subjects, maybe they need 3 subjects, right? So, but one thing I want to say also, that we need to also focus on ensuring inclusion of children with disabilities.
Exactly.
And we
Definitely,
just don't do that enough.
And I want to refer to it as people with different abilities, ladies and gentlemen. And answering questions is fine, but research says that almost a kid who's actually 6 to 7 years old starts going to school, asks 400 questions on average. But thank you very much for being with us. It was lovely to have you. You have a question? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
You got a small question.
But yes, so we all agree with the fact that education is very imperative to all the other SDGs, right? So I don't think it is probably in line with what we're talking about, but sort of. Is social mobilization also important for education?
True. Yes.
Yes.
Why not?
We have seen
Social mobilization is particularly what we initially mentioned about engaging community.
Right, right.
When community is not taking responsibility of their children education, no one will bring about change at their school and village level. So children are very linked with their parents. So social mobilization will also encourage parents to send their daughters to schools and their daughters to higher secondary schools.
Definitely.
Through PPAF, MID has established MID Girls College in Funda in the mountains.
Wow.
It is now there you can see 2 to 3 feet snow, but children are enjoying with quality learning.
That's great.
That's the spirit we're talking
we
about.
have facilitated them, and the community is engaged, not we. Community were there to encourage their children, to bring them to school. So all these things are happening from that early childhood education to secondary level education.
Okay. Wow.
In your sustainable goals, this early childhood education, particularly in our education system in government, we are ignoring it. It is very important. The developed countries, the countries who are guiding us nowadays, they have invested in early childhood education.
Right.
In that, your learning take place much in that age, from 2 to 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
But we in our schools, we don't have that facility.
Yeah.
We have a curriculum. The government has developed a very nice curriculum of early childhood education in 2007, but the implementation is lacking. Now we have to focus implementation of that very nice curriculum in our schools.
And we wish you
Thank
best
you
of
so
luck
much.
for
Thank
that
you for
and for
being
all
here.
those future ventures you're actually going to be a part of. For all the best for your future endeavors. And I think it was great to have observed this International Day of Education for the very first time, ladies and gentlemen, in 2019 on 24th of January. I'm very proud of it. Thank you very much once again. And please make sure that you make our future generations, or probably groom them or nurture them in a way where they're world leaders. I mean, this is one thing which I aspire for Pakistani people to be. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We will be right back and we'll be talking about aloe vera. From education to aloe vera, everything is important.
We love educating you. Good morning. Stay tuned.
24th January is proclaimed as World Education Day in celebration of the role of education for peace and development. Today, 262 million children and youth still do not attend school, 617 million children cannot read and do basic math, and some 4 million children and youth refugees are out of school. According to the Pakistan Economics Survey 2017 and 2018, the literacy rate for entire Pakistan includes 10 years old and above is 58%. It has a large percentage of such people as well who just know how to write their name and are included in this. So the question arises, why is education important? Firstly, education is a human right, a public good, and a public responsibility. Secondly, education is the most powerful force in our hands to ensure significant improvements in health, to stimulate economic growth, to unlock the potential and innovation we need to build more resilient and sustainable societies. Lastly, we urgently need to call for collective action for education at global level. So what are the top 3 teaching methodologies? Number 1 is the demonstrator or the coach style. The demonstrator retains the formal authority role by showing students what they need to know. The demonstrator is a lot like the lecturer, but their lessons include multimedia presentations, activities, and demonstrations. Number 2 is the facilitator or activity style. Facilitators promote self-learning and help students develop critical thinking skills and retain knowledge that leads to self-actualization. Number 3 is the hybrid or blended style. Hybrid or blended style follows an integrated approach to teaching that blends the teacher's personality and interests with students' needs and curriculum-appropriate methods. As the world marks the International Education Day today, let's strengthen our resolve to make quality education a leading priority.
Definitely. So if there's anything you learned from Lubna and our amazing guest about education systems in Pakistan and around the world as well, write us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
World This Morning.
On Twitter,
World This Morning without a G.
Daily Motion on YouTube.
World This Morning once again.
And the repeat is going to be
5
at
past 11 p.m. tonight. Till the next time, 1, 2, 3.
Good
morning.
morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The successful harvest is a reason to celebrate and enjoy the fruits of labor. We present to you the dawn to dusk Punjabi dance.
World's highest polo ground. Chandur invites visitors to experience a traditional polo tournament between the teams of Chitral and Gilgit. The tournament is held on Chandur Pass, the highest polo ground in the world, at 3,700 meters above sea level. The first time a polo tournament took place on the Chandur Pass was in 1936. It is a place unique and exotic in itself, surrounded by some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in the world.